Yes.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. Mike Long here, Vice President of Franchise Development for VetCor. We're here this evening to continue our last one in our series of Franchising 101 webinars, the Discovery Day, and what it's all about. So I'll turn it over to our President and CEO, Paul Huzar.
Greetings, everyone. Good evening, and depending on what time zone you're in, Jeremy, is it? I guess it's still afternoon, maybe there. Welcome all. We're still old military folks, so we got to have an agenda. So there's our agenda, and I'll cover really just the first very brief part because I want to make sure you guys understand. You all understand who we are, what we do. But we're not trying to advertise VetCor. What we're really trying to do is advertise veterans in franchising and create some opportunities for y'all. But we want to make sure you understand kind of relative to that where we are. So VetCor is a restoration company. We help solve water and mold related challenges in commercial and residential properties, but we do so by primarily deploying veterans of the U.S. military. There are technicians and about 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago now, we started franchising. Our mission is to create sustainable and meaningful employment opportunities through this industry. So we're a for-profit company. I started it after I retired, and it was in 2013. It was actually founded by my business partner, David Howard, who was a former Army captain, and then he hired me to get into restoration. Much like Mike, he was a captain and got out after 5 years, but then spent 25 in the insurance industry. And that's how he saw the need for a company like VetCor. And he wanted to do something to help veterans. So I was the first hire. He started me to run the business. Less than a year, about 8 months into it, I had the opportunity to buy the business. We opened 2 additional offices along the way, won a bunch of awards, because we like to brag about hiring veterans and like to lead by example. And that's how we got here to about 2 years ago when we started to franchise and now added to our vision and mission statement, creating business ownership opportunities for veterans. So when we do these Franchising 101 for veteran presentations, it's not about VetCor. Great. If you're interested, we're happy to talk to you about that as a business opportunity. But it's really consistent with what our mission is to create sustainable, meaningful employment opportunities and now business ownership opportunities for our nation's heroes. And what we do is we do emergency services, water damage, mold damage, fire damage mitigation. We have a bunch of our franchisees and teammates currently in Louisiana helping out post-hurricane. But the primary stuff we do is dishwashers, ice makers, hot water heaters, air conditioning units. They break pretty regularly, and when they do, they need someone to help them, and that's what we specialize in. Other than that, now we specialize in training, standardizing, and replicating through franchising, which is very, I think, consistent with what we did in the military as a training organization. And so what we try and do is use that background and to benefit veterans, and this is one way we do it, is by creating this Franchising 101 series to talk about franchising and those opportunities. So with that, I'll let Mike take it away to the last in our series of Franchising 101 about the Discovery Day.
Thanks a lot, Paul. So, hey, what is Discovery Day? Well, this is kind of it's one single step within the overall awarding process. Remember, as we started out, we go back, it all starts with when an individual has an interest in a franchise brand, and they contact that brand either individually, directly with that brand, or they work through maybe a franchise consultant or broker that may assist them in narrowing down their different options. And then they go through this franchising process. Well, the Discovery Day is really kind of that last step, or should be at least the last step within that awarding process before it becomes decision-making time for both the franchisor and the franchisee to make sure it's a good mutual fit for all parties before you kind of consummate it through a franchise agreement. These events are in person, or they had always been, for the most part, in person until COVID hit. And then, obviously, there was a need to do what we're doing now, Zoom webinar type events, non-in-person discovery days for the franchisor and the potential franchisee candidates. What does the Discovery Day normally include? Well, if it's in person, it may be, a dinner with the leadership team. You're obviously going to sit down and go through probably a full day of operations, marketing, finances, and some training, and cover those aspects. And also, what are the expectations from the franchisor to the franchisee, and then what the specific support that the franchisor is going to provide to the franchisee. If this is a brand that, let's say, has local locations, let's say it's a massage brand and they have a local franchise owner in the area. Well, you may go there and experience and be a customer of theirs for a day, or sort of shadow that business owner for a half a day to kind of get and understand what a day in the life looks like. And really, let's not kid ourselves. It's really a two-way interview process between both parties, right? You as the potential franchisee candidate, you're interviewing the franchisor still. This is part of the process, part of your due diligence, and vice versa. The franchisor is interviewing the candidate, and it can literally, things can change in the course of the 36 or maybe 48 hours that you're there and present for the discovery day. So let's talk about the awarding process. Part of the overall awarding process, it's going to be the last or next to last step. And let me say this, if it is not the next to last step, we'll discuss that here in the future. It's going to be held in person or virtually. And here's some things. With the ease of holding discovery days once COVID hit to a virtual environment, a lot of brands started moving to discovery days way forward in their process. And then the candidates haven't had a really opportunity to go through and complete their full due diligence. And so then that doesn't become as beneficial, because you may be talking about things as part of the discovery day that you as a potential candidate have no idea or clue about, because you haven't gone through the full process of the franchising process yet. So be cognizant of that you don't want to attend a discovery day virtually or in person too early in the process, because it won't, from our standpoint, won't benefit you as a potential franchisee candidate. And really, I don't see how it would benefit the franchisor, but there are some brands that are out there doing that. Let's talk about the logistics of it. Usually, and this is not in all cases, usually the candidates, they will pay their way to the location if it's an in-person type discovery day for the event. The franchisor will normally provide housing. They'll put them up in a hotel for the evening or 2 nights. They'll provide the transportation. You're flying in, pick you up at the airport, get you to your hotel, get you to the dinner if you're having one that evening, get you from your hotel to the headquarters where you're going to be holding the discovery day. Franchisor is going to take care of your meals while you're there and taking part in it. And what's the important part of this? What does this really say? This is really commitment on both parties' part. You're going to come to an educated and calculated decision, hopefully after walking through this final step in the process. This is where everyone can lay their cards out on the table, talk about their concerns, talk about their hesitation about anything, talk about what they're thrilled about, what they've loved about the process, what they've found from the other franchisees as part of the validation process that they've gone through. So it really allows them to go through and kind of walk themselves through from initially contacting the franchisee all the way to getting to this point in between. And so that's an important aspect of this. So what are the benefits? There's benefits for both parties, right? The candidate and the franchisor. Well, what's the benefit for the candidate? Well, for one, a lot of times in the franchising process, you may be speaking to one voice, maybe someone like myself, the VP of franchise development, or a sales consultant for the brand. And that can, don't get me wrong, can kind of get monotonous. My wife tells me that a lot, just hearing my voice, okay? So this gives you an opportunity to meet the leadership team, meet all the different people in your organization, folks that are in the marketing team, maybe the CEO, the COO, the CFO, any other key personnel from maybe a training perspective. the director of operations for the franchise group, all those key individuals that can be important individuals and also be important support personnel and people you may have to lean on in just starting up a new business with a new brand. So that's an important aspect for the candidate. Next is you get to see how the functionality of the headquarters unit, of the franchise headquarters, and how they work together, how they talk to each other, how they communicate, between, a senior level executive and a potential hourly wage employee that may be one of a technician or someone who's a wait staff or someone along those, if it's a food service entity. So those are the things that you want to be able to take a look at and have a keen eye out for. Also, as I mentioned before, hopefully, if it's a brand that has a lot of different locations that are owned in the area by franchisees, you'd want to be able to go visit that franchise location. Now, a lot of times, if you're coming to visit the corporate headquarters, the local area may not be franchise owned and it may be corporate owned. So that's a question you want to make sure. You want to make sure you're going to visit an actual franchisee owned location so you can get the true feel and talk to a fellow franchisee and ask them questions about their process, how ownership has been, what type of support they've gone through, et cetera. And then also last, what's the benefit for the candidate? It allows you to peek into the company's culture, okay? If you don't have experience in this industry with a brand that you're looking to get into, you kind of want to get a feel for what their culture is like. Because, tone is set at the top from the CEO and the executive team on down. And if it's a toxic type environment and, things don't seem right to you, then that probably is permeating throughout the organization. Or on the flip side, if you feel a great energy, a great culture, everyone treats each other with respect, from the top all the way on down, that's a part of the culture you want to be a part of and you want to join that team, just reinforces, hopefully why you're there for that discovery day. So those are the key components of the benefits of a discovery day for the candidate. For the franchisor, well, it allows the company to show off and permeate their company culture, to establish the culture immediately with that potential candidate to see, hey, this is what we're all about. This is the way we conduct business. This is the way we handle ourselves and carry ourselves. This is the energy that we bring. Or on the flip side, the not so good, as I mentioned previously. So this is an informal interview. It's an assessment of the candidate. Yes, like I said, one or two individuals may have had engagement along the franchise process with the potential candidate. The CEO may not have, COO may not have, CFO, the director of operations, the director of marketing, all those other individuals may have not had any interaction at this point in time with the candidate thus far. So this is an informal, interview and assessment of that candidate for all of them. And, it gives the leadership team, the franchisor, an opportunity now to start to build the rapport with that potential franchisee. See if they're able to work together. See, is this someone who is asking open-ended questions? Someone who wants to learn and is open to, oh, well, I don't want to do it that way. Can I do it this way? Because, franchising, once again, is standardize, replicate, and train. And so as you move into a brand or a system, that's exactly what you're purchasing when you're paying your franchise fee, is the intellectual property, the processes, the operations, the marketing that is built up over time by a brand. So this is part of building that rapport with the future franchisee. So what are some challenges? Some challenges that you face with Discovery Day. It's a really short time window. You maybe get a day to 48 hours collectively that you're in town meeting with the franchisor. Coordinating time for a Discovery Day. Hopefully you're employed. You have to take the time off to be able to come in. If it's an in-person event, if it's a not in-person event and it's virtual, you're still going to have to take that time off because you as a candidate are going to provide your unbridled attention to the franchisor as this is a worthwhile event for you. And if you're not willing to put that time in, then you may not be a right fit for the franchisor. The last thing is, making sure all questions are answered for both parties. Because let's be honest, this is like I said, the last or next last step within the franchise process. If there are still questions out there that you don't have answers as a potential candidate, or vice versa, the franchisor has not answered those, has not had questions answered of the franchise candidate, then that's a problem. So you need to make sure that everything is out and open and on the table, and everything has been addressed by both parties to ensure that everyone's comfortable with everything. So these are some questions that you may want to ask as a potential franchisee of your franchisor. What do your future growth plans look like? Because if you're looking to come into a system, particularly someone that may be just starting out versus a big, huge, well-established brand, like let's say a fast casual restaurant like a Subway, or a very large entity that has hundreds and thousands of units. You want to know what the plans are for growth for that, kind of startup franchisor. Because the last thing you want to do is invest in it and know that in 4 months they're looking to sell the business. Okay, so you want to make sure you understand kind of where the company's going in the direction it's looking to go long term. What support is provided beyond the initial training? It's real easy to go ahead and get through that initial onboarding. There's all that excitement that's pent up by the franchisee and the franchisor. Someone new's coming in, new blood, new ownership, and ready to go. And we get you, does the franchisor get you up and running and get you to that point? But then the support stops, or there's no ongoing training, or there's not anyone that you have a direct line to call and contact if you need something. And if you need something, who is the right person or the right department to contact and for what? So that's an important aspect to understand, so that, when you have a problem, and they will occur, who do you turn to and how do you get in contact with them? This may seem pretty intuitive. You've had a franchise disclosure document put in front of you. You should have read it. You should have consulted an attorney regarding it, potentially. What is the length of the actual franchise agreement? That's an important thing to know. So if you're thinking that you're just in this for 3 to 4 years, and then you're going to look to sell or move on or whatever it may be, that's an important aspect to know. How long is the franchise agreement really for? Is it 5 years? Is it 10 years? And then also, what are the contract termination clauses and what's your exit strategy based upon that previous bullet about the length of the franchise agreement? What happens if you decide you want to get out or you want to sell prior to the end of that agreement term? What are the steps? Do you have to sell it on your own? Can you sell it back to the franchisor? Will the franchisor sell it for you on your behalf? If so, what fees are associated in doing that? So those are all the type of things. And this goes for any business that you start up, whether it's a franchise or something on your own. You have to understand and know what your exit strategy is. Okay, that's something that needs to be known by you, and it's made clear, and understand what those steps are that have to be taken from an exit strategy standpoint. Cannot emphasize that enough. And then last, what is your territory? What are the boundaries that are put in place? Is it geographically outlined? Is it a specific store location with a certain radius of products and services that you can provide? Is it outlined by a land mass or a population? What is the criteria in creating that territory or those boundaries for that franchise? So that's an important thing to know and understand. Because the last thing the other thing that goes hand in hand with that, can the franchisor go ahead and sell another franchise that's in your geography or in your territory? Or then will you be competing against another franchisee for business? So those are some important aspects you want to know about the business when you're kind of trying to wrap up those loose ends as part of the Discovery Day process. All right, at this point in time, we'll stop the recording. and we will answer any individual questions you may have.